The fluorescent lights pulsed overhead, casting a sterile glare across the ratty little studio. It smelled faintly of instant coffee, sweat, and the cigarettes people smoked on the fire escape, thinking no one noticed. I sat at the edge of the battered couch, knees bouncing. My portfolio, clippings from the City Gazette, a handful of blurry photos, the draft of an exposé about a corrupt city councilman, rested in my lap, the pages dog-eared from months of lugging it around. Across the crowded room, Aunt Lydia cackled, tossing her wine-dark hair over her striped blouse. "Investigative journalist," she said, as if tasting something sour. "Next you'll be chasing UFOs in Peru." Everyone within earshot laughed. The word journalist came out with an edge sharp as broken glass. Uncle Moro shook his head, eyes fixed on the soccer match flickering on the TV in the corner. I looked to my mother, who avoided my eyes, busied herself passing out bowls of feijoada. My father shifted weight in his armchair, clearing his throat. "Paulo, writing is nice, but those places, the violence. Sao Paulo isn't safe on foot, imagine going after criminals." He meant it to sound like concern, but his lips curled as if he couldn't help it. I tried to steady myself, repeating words I'd rehearsed in the mirror. "Someone has to ask questions, crime doesn't just fix itself." Lydia leaned forward, all cheap perfume and judgment. "No one cares about your questions. You get killed or you get broke, that's all that happens to people like you. I see you in the favela running after your story. Someday you'll call for help and we'll say, 'Told you so.'" Laughter again, not just from the adults but my cousin Raphael, who was in the kitchen scrolling on his phone, and even Anna, my little sister. I started sweating, heart pounding in my ears. I felt the sharp orange of rage, but I swallowed it down. There was no room here for anger. Anger was fuel, but you learn early not to spill it where family can see. "Maybe you all think it's hopeless," I said, holding tight to the portfolio, "but I don't." My voice didn't tremble for once, but my knuckles were white. They didn't answer. The TV commentator crowed about a goal. Some uncles switched to talking about traffic or politics or the price of chicken. That was the end of it, or so they thought. I give myself credit. I left that studio, lungs burning, and I didn't come back for years. 6 weeks after that night, I stood in the sticky heat of a bus depot, shaking hands with a junior editor from outcast, a small investigative outlet most people in my family had never heard of. The pay was nothing. My beat, the underbelly of Sao Paulo, street gangs, police extortion, slumlords, the sort of things everyone knows about but pretends not to see. I spent nights in damp basements pulling public records, borrowed a tape recorder from a friend, learned to bribe bureaucrats for photocopies. I ate rice and lentils for dinner, took cold showers in shared apartments, and found solace in the city's relentless energy, the hum of traffic, the shouts from Camilos hawking wares. Some tips went nowhere and some led to threats. Once a man waited outside my door muttering that nosy people vanished. I pressed on anyway, compelled by something I couldn't name, not courage, a kind of bitterness maybe, but directed. Finding the truth was like dragging a net across mud, slow, exhausting, but eventually something surfaced. I wrote stories of a city split open, about racketed bus lines, about children paying protection money, about a housing scam uncovered block by block. Outcast published them in blocks of ragged text, and sometimes my byline ran so small you'd miss it. Most days I thought of giving up. Every time I did, I remembered Lydia's sneer, the weight of family laughter hanging on my shoulders like chains. Late at night I rehearsed imaginary confrontations. Walking up Rua Augusta looking at the city lights, I imagined calling my father and saying, "You were wrong," but I never dialed. 3 years in, I lucked onto something real. A series of construction sites abandoned, budget sky high, city councilmen's pockets suspiciously deep. Nothing sexy, just paperwork, money sloshing around like dirty water. My article ran buried online. A week later, a battered old man approached me near a viaduct, coat buttoned up despite the heat. "My brother worked on that project," he said. "He disappeared, look in Jardim Piri." I did. I found not just dead concrete but angry families, coded ledgers, whispered names. Every call I made, the story sprawled further. Hundreds of evictions, bribes, threats, one accidental fire that wasn't so accidental. Months passed. Editors called me stubborn, sleepless, fanatical. People stopped inviting me to parties. Stubbornness paid off, a citywide scandal, a mayor forced to resign, my name briefly mentioned as the reporter who unearthed it all. For a week, TV trucks swarmed the neighborhoods I'd walked for years, microphones shoved at anyone who would talk. I watched, sleepless, half exhilarated and half hollow. Then came the backlash. My email overflowed with threats. Police questioned me, city officials sued, the newspaper worried about libel issues. My father called one night, hesitantly asking if I was all right. "Come home, Paulo," he said, "this is too much for us." I laughed then, not bitterly, just tired. Too much for us, there had never been any us, not when I needed it. I didn't go home. Not until years later, when everything had changed. It was early evening. Sao Paulo's sky was the sullen bruise of late rain. My driver's window was down, humid air swirling in. I'd left journalism for a year-long fellowship in the US, published under a New York masthead, given a talk in London. Ota Momtro's offices were painted now, bustling, my old boss 3 times as sharp in a tailored suit. My book, an account of the corruption scandal, had been released the previous month. I returned to Sao Paulo on a cloud of press coverage, interviews, invitations, more than I'd dreamed of, and yet the city had not changed. Its corners still raw and nervous. My mother called, her voice trembling with pride and something else. "Come for Raphael's graduation," she said. "He keeps asking about you, stay for dinner." I agreed, though my hands shook when I hung up. The same studio. I imagined my family unchanged, filling bowls, tossing casual jabs, the background hum of TV and dismissal. That rainy evening, I parked across the street and stared at the building. The graffiti was new, tags in rolling, urgent script. I climbed the stairs, portfolio in a bag, though there was nothing in it now but a hardback book, my name stamped gold across the spine. Inside, the studio bustled as always. Raphael shook my hand limply, glancing at his phone. Anna, taller, more poised, hugged me lightly. Dad opened the door, voice gruff, embarrassed. "Paulo, you look thinner." My mother studied me, face bright, uncertain whether to cry or boast. I stood there, caught in the sodden warmth of family, mind racing. Uncle Moro flipped the channel to a news program. On the screen, a talking head referred to the housing scandal, to painful reforms, to the brave work of investigative journalists. My face flashed by barely a second. Lydia, setting down a steaming dish, caught the mention, her brow wrinkled. "Wait, Paulo, did they just show your book?" Her tone was not cruel now, but incredulous, searching for ground. I nodded, voice steady though my pulse thundered. "They did. I'll be speaking at the assembly tomorrow." The room paused, the kind of stillness before a summer downpour, air holding its breath. Mumbling started at the edges. No jokes, no laughter. Anna, eyes wide, asked, "Paulo, was it dangerous, all those things you wrote about?" Her voice was neither mocking nor admiring, just curious, a tone I had rarely heard. I shrugged. "Some nights, yes. Most of the time it was lonely." Lydia put the dish down, watching me, weighing the cost and the prize. "I didn't think people from here could, I don't know, actually get anywhere," she said finally. Her voice held no apology, only the pinched honesty of someone rethinking herself. I felt the old anger bloom, sharp and hot in my belly, but I was tired of anger, it had burned through its use. Raphael piped up, screen forgotten. "My friends at the university read your book for class." His voice had awe in it, forced casualness barely disguising pride. Dad handed me a beer, silent. His eyes avoided mine as usual, but when he touched my shoulder, the grip was firm. At dinner, Aunt Lydia asked questions about the book's release, the television spots. Even Moro admitted he'd read some headlines. No jokes this time, no UFO hunting. Instead, something heavier. Respect or regret, hard to say. From the threshold, I watched as Anna thumbed through the copy of my book, lips moving as she traced the dedication. I'd written, "For my family who always gave me something to prove." Dinner was peppered with questions. Not the backhanded kind of my youth, but real ones. How do you find sources? How do you stay safe? What makes a story worth telling? I answered honestly, describing the fear, the exhaustion, the small moments when truth burned through the grey wash. It was not triumph, not exactly. Success after so much doubt is quieter than you imagine. I'd expected a victory parade, a stirring speech, reconciliation lit up by the fireworks of apology. But the reality was more delicate, shaded, nuanced by the enduring patterns of family. Later, as rain thickened outside and the city hummed below, my father lingered over coffee. The others drifted, but he sat nursing his mug. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I don't understand half of what you do," he said, "but I see now this is work, real work. You proved us wrong." He met my eyes for the first time in years. "I'm proud you did not listen." I exhaled deeply, years of hurt easing, not erased but loosened. I'd imagined revenge would taste sweet, but it was something gentler, like rain washing hot streets, like the city's slow forgiveness. The next day, I walked from the studio under clearing skies, the city unfolding before me. Sao Paulo still bristled with secrets, traffic, urgent shouts. I felt lighter not because I'd won, but because the weight had shifted. I nodded to neighbors, took the long way home, clipped between alleys where I'd once chased stories. Redemption, I learned, is not a single moment. It's the quiet return, the sitting down at a familiar table, the proof unfolding from your hands while others look on, reconsidering their laughter. I'd wanted to change their minds. Instead, I'd changed myself and found my city by finally coming home.